Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Off the First. It is the Monday after the Masters 2026. I'm Ryan Ballengee. Great to have you here with us. We're going to talk about Rory McIlroy winning the Masters for the second year running. We'll talk about some other storylines that kind of come out of this. Justin Rose feels like a personal storyline to someone of my age, nearly 43 years old. He's almost 45. We'll talk about him, as well as the budding rivalry with Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy that I think is approaching Jack-Arnie levels and is giving us something maybe we never really truly got with Phil and Tiger. First, let's start with Rory. Obviously, winds up winning the Masters by a shot on 12 under 276. He's the fourth player in the history of the Masters. This was the 90th Masters to go back to back. Jack did it in 65 and 66. Then Faldo did in 89 90, both in playoffs. Both took two holes. And then in Scott Hoke and Ray Floyd. And then in 2001 and 2002, Tiger Woods did it. First to complete the Tiger Slam, then to go back to back in 2002. This was the most Rory McIlroy at the Masters fashion I think you could have imagined. You know, when he got to the 6-shot lead at the halfway mark, which was a record for the tournament, it kind of seemed like maybe, okay, he's never going to lose again. He's completely free. He finally did it last year. There's nothing to worry about, and we couldn't have been more wrong about that, right? Shoots a 73 in the third round. Cam Young plays a great round of golf to take the solo lead for a little while on that Saturday third round, winds up even, level with McIlroy going into the final day. I think that probably helped McIlroy a lot. I think that McIlroy was probably had a better pairing in Cam Young than he could have had in someone like Justin Rose, having to run it back with him. I thought that was really, really interesting that it worked out that way. But McIlroy seemed to treat having the green jacket as like a security blanket all week. I mean, he talked about it going into it. It's easier to win the second Masters having won your first, and mathematically that kind of only happens that way, right? We're not in a quantum problem, but it then kind of came back again after the third round to go, well, no matter what happens, I still have a green jacket, and I'll think about that tomorrow. And no matter what happens, I could go get a Coke in the champions locker room. It was almost like he was preparing to lose. And then on Sunday came out, leaves an 8-foot birdie putt, just unforgivably short on the first hole. Second hole, okay. Third hole makes birdie, makes a really, really nice birdie, gets on the board, and then three jacks it from 5 feet on 4. And you feel like, okay, this is the beginning of the end. This is it. And makes a mess of 6. Fortunately, Cam Young does as well. He pulled his par putt. McIlroy probably made a bad choice hitting putter from going deep. The wind laid down for his tee shot, so I'm not too worried about the tee shot, but the second shot was not very good. But then birdie's 7, birdie's 8. He's back in the golf tournament, and then he gets through 11, which I think that was probably very much in the game plan of, all right, you have to do this way better than you did yesterday. Don't make a mess of this. Go hit it to the right side of the green. Don't even entertain the flag. He didn't hit the green. And then 12, probably one of the greatest shots you're ever going to see on that hole in that situation. Takes on the back right flag, gets it there, one hop stop, and then pays it off with the birdie. That was the big deal. And then plays 13, 350-yard drive, to perfection. That's the golf tournament. That's it right there. And then just kind of had to manage it, right? 15 was fine. 16, again, a little deep on a par 3, maybe jacked up, maybe misread the wind. I'm not sure about that. But goes deep, and not quite the Tiger shot, right, from 2005. Tiger was to the left of the green. Rory's in back of it, but just played a brilliant sideways and a little putt into the fringe. Just rolls out perfectly. Tap in par. 17's fine. And then you get to 18, you think, all right, this is the coast walk, right? He's finally done it. No, blasts one way right, basically on the 10th hole. He was so lucky that he blasted it so far right that he had a hook shot over one of the bigger trees guarding the way between 10 and 18, puts in the front left bunker, got himself out, extricated himself. And that was really the hard part. Once you got out and landed on the putting surface, the rest was pretty easy to negotiate. 2 putts and wins by 1 over Scottie Scheffler. He's now, in absolute unique company in golf. The career arc that he has been on is really interesting to me. And I think everyone's career arc is very interesting. I mean, I was thinking about Brooks Koepka the other day. Like, he's a generational great. Win 2 majors multiple times, and a whole bunch of stuff in between that's good, but not, not incredible. He's gotten close here. Rory has his own unique story, right? He blew it at the 11 Masters. I was at that tournament. I remember that kind of Paul Bearer walk from the 18th hole to the then locker room. Now they have the player services building, but with his girlfriend at the time, who would not be his wife, and just how sad it felt. And then, he goes and wins the U.S. Open right away. That was not really a true U.S. Open. Not saying he didn't win, but it wasn't a U.S. Open as you expected. He blows everyone away at a softened Congressional that was kind of made weak by having new greens and poor temperatures leading into it. He wins the PGA by 8 the next year at Kiowa, and you think, okay, something is budding. He wins majors back-to-back in 14, wins the Open at Hoylake, finally does it in front of his mom, Rosie, who was there on Sunday for the first time to watch him win a major in 12 years, which is crazy. And then he wins the PGA in the dark at Valhalla. You go, all right, he's got 4. Surely he's going to get 8, maybe 10. And then 11 years goes by, and he wins back-to-back Masters in his 17th and 18th appearances, which obviously that's unique to the 4 people who've gone back-to-back. That he managed to do it at this kind of advanced stage of his life is pretty interesting. With so much going on, it's interesting that, he's had personal troubles, right? He filed for divorce from his wife last year, and then a couple weeks later took that back. He's kind of dealing with making TGL a thing, and he's kind of stepped back from the PGA Tour future, whatever that is with LIV, letting other people decide that now that the whole LIV thing seems to kind of have dissipated. But he's won here the last 2 years, and he is one of the rare players in the history of the Masters, 12 players in the history of the Masters, to have had at least a share of the lead after every round, and that means winning. He didn't go no ties, right? Tied for the first and third rounds, but winds up winning by a shot. And I think that's incredible. That makes him interesting. It makes him unique. He's now one major away from being tied as the winningest European player of all time. I know he takes a lot of pride in his record of having now the most orders of merit. Well, he's going after Monty next. He'll get there. Most orders of merit in DP World Tour / European Tour history. He's got that basically in his pocket, pretty close to his pocket. And then he's checked off the things that he still had left. He wanted to win a Masters. He wanted to win a Road Ryder Cup. He did that last year. Now, what's left? Well, you go back to back. He said last year after he won the green jacket ceremony outside, he couldn't wait to come back next year and put the green jacket on himself. And he did that. I mean, I know Chairman Fred Ridley does that, but he did it, right? He stepped out and did it. And that is remarkable to kind of check off those career achievements in basically your mid-30s just like that. It's pretty amazing. And what's left? And I think that the next step is, all right, I've got to go find another goal. Well, I can complete the career Grand Slam again. I can do a second tour, right? He has half of it from the 2012 PGA. Was his first, but he has a 2014 PGA. So that was already in the bag. He's got a second Masters. So now he's got to get a second U.S. Open and a second Open. And I can't say that I think the U.S. Open's easy for him to grab. I think that's probably the hardest major for him to win, particularly this year at Shinnecock, where I'm sure it's not going to be a score under par or much under par that wins. I could see him doing very well at Birkdale, though. But he can get to a second career Grand Slam. Like that's what's left. It's being the winningest European in the majors. It's completing the career Grand Slam again. That would get you to 8. Do you then try to get to 9 and join, Gary Player kind of thing? Like that's what's left. He's tied for 12th all time on the all-time major wins list. He's there with Nick Faldo. And Nick Faldo kind of is a little smarmy about Rory. And then Phil Mickelson. I'm sure he'd love to stick it to both of those guys and win a 7th major too. So really, really interesting stuff. Just a compelling watch. It wasn't going to happen any other way. And then to kind of shift gears to what Scottie Scheffler accomplished, really, it was so close. He almost came back from a dozen down to the halfway point to get into a playoff. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? The greatest comeback in Masters history after 36 and 54 holes. Jackie Burke Jr., late Jackie Burke Jr., who was 8 back at both the halfway mark and the 3/4 mark in 1956 when Ken Venturi shot 80 in the final round to open the door for him with the final round 71 to win. Scheffler obviously didn't have that, right? He didn't have someone shoot 80 in the final day to make that possible. He shot 65 on Saturday, 68 on Sunday, and it still felt like he let it get away from him. He was just long of the green, on Sunday. He couldn't make birdie from there. 13 was unfortunate. 17 was unfortunate. I mean, he was just a half a ball to the right or left away from those putts going in. And unfortunately, I think he will maybe sometimes think about his playing partner, Haotong Li, making a mess of the 13th. Took it 10, found the bushes, the water. He putted in the water. It made him wait a long time to have to hit that third shot. Maybe if he doesn't have to wait as long, he gets it closer. Maybe he doesn't, right? But he probably thinks about that for a while. He handled the par fives pretty poorly over the course of the week. What he did on 15, though, to make birdie and make it interesting was just a gorgeous birdie. I mean, from under the trees, horrible tee shot, finds a way in the third shot and right in the heart. I mean, man, that was great. It felt like maybe there was an outside glimmer of hope at that point, even though it seemed like it was Rory's to lose by the time Scheffler got into 15. And then on 17, it was close. It wasn't quite the jack putt from 86, but he thought it was going to come back, and it didn't come back to the left. It stayed on the right. And he missed it by, I don't know, a half a ball, a quarter of a ball. At the speed it was going, all I had to do was catch any portion of the lip. I missed it on the left side, but he was so close. And I think he will rue Friday, right? He knew Thursday was difficult given the starting time that he had. Talked about it openly. He also kind of talked about mud balls and the playing surfaces, and that he was somewhat disappointed, I think, that Augusta National, after Thursday, decided to kind of let up a little bit and soften the greens a little bit using the sub-air systems, making the course a little bit accessible. He was asked Saturday after 65, what do you think Augusta should do for Sunday? He's like, well, I'm not up to them. I'm not them, but they could go full Bay Hill and just kill the greens and make it really tough, or they can set it up for birdies and eagles. And that's kind of what Saturday and Sunday felt like. They set it up for birdies and eagles, but to Augusta National's credit, they let it bake. I mean, there were plenty of browned and distressed spots out there. Not that it was in horrible shape by any stretch. The greens rolled very true. Everything looked great out there in terms of playing. It just wasn't that same unicolor green, that monotone green that you probably come to expect from the Masters. And it was the right mix of firm and accessible, and that is a credit to them that they were able to strike that balance. I think it was a great golf tournament in the end, and I don't think Scheffler can look back. I don't think he will look back and blame the conditions. I think he'll say, hey, I missed on the low side so many times on Friday. That was where I lost the tournament, that and the par fives. But incredible that he gave it that run. If he could just play, it takes about 45 great holes to win a major, basically. 45 great ones. You can have 9 not so good ones, more or less, in the years of watching golf and kind of studying how it works. You go on these runs, you have to play really, really good holes. You just kind of have to manage the bad. And he just made enough mistakes on holes you can't make those mistakes. And that's what cost him a chance at the third green jacket in 8 years, which would have been a record of its kind. So now you have this rivalry with Rory McIlroy, where they've won 4 of the last 5 Masters between them. 22, 24, 25, 26. Jon Rahm's the only one to win in 23. He stunk this week. He lost everything that he seemingly had momentum-wise from his great start on LIV Golf this year. And then they've won 4 of the last 5 majors, period, right? J.J. Spahn's the only player not named McIlroy or Scheffler to have won one of the last 5 majors. And that to me speaks to a level of rivalry that's suddenly budded here that might be Jack-Arnie level, right? Jack obviously won way more majors than Arnie did in the end, but for a 5-year stretch, they put the green jackets on each other at Augusta National, except 65 and 66, when Jack did it to himself. The 60s were about, the first half of the 60s were about those 2 guys. And then you had Sam Snead and Ben Hogan in the 50s, the first part of the 50s. Those guys did 4 in a row, right? This isn't in a row, but this is 4 out of 5. And then you had Tiger and Phil, 2001, 2002, Mike Weir, 2003, Skip, 2004, Phil, and then back to Tiger in 2005. That's a little bit more one-sided, right? But then Phil wins in 2006. So that 6-year run is pretty incredible as well. So this is really the 4th time that's ever happened in Masters history, something like this. And I think we have something here. This is really interesting. You know, Scottie Scheffler's basically been the number 1 player in the world for the last 5 years. As far as the official world golf ranking goes, for something like 152 weeks in a row, which is pretty incredible. I mean, that's unseen outside of Tiger and Greg Norman. And I think McIlroy's going to maybe try to challenge for that. Maybe he wants to be number 1 one more time. That you've got something here. You've got something here in golf that I think is fascinating. A few words about the others. I mean, Cam Young just didn't have it. Just didn't quite have it on Sunday. And the old mantra comes back. It's really hard to follow a low one with another low one. And he didn't need a low one, but he needed a good one. He didn't quite have that in him. He had it in him early. It seemed like he had it in him early. But then I think once it kind of dawned on him, hey, here's what's possible. I can win. I think the 7th hole was a real letdown for him. Shocking bogey there. Should have been at least a par, probably a birdie to that funnel pin. And that was kind of where it got away from him, I think. And it's a close call, right? He's not going to be the 3rd consecutive Players Champion to win the Masters that next month. But he is a guy that has the capability to win majors. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays very well in the remaining majors this year. Before I forget, if you are a betting person, I would bet Jake Knapp at the PGA Championship. He was fabulous at the Masters, finished in 11th place. How about Collin Morikawa? Very gingerly trying to get around. Almost looked like he was struggling to walk at the end, walking like somebody who had been on a few benders and still played great. Max Homa gets back into next year's Masters, keeps playing his way back into the Masters through the Masters. Hopefully that's a good sign for him moving forward. Sam Burns is going to get one of these one day. I really do believe that. But I want to talk for a few minutes about Justin Rose. He had the lead after the birdie on 8, got him to 11 under. Cam Young bogey 7. He was tied for the lead, then has the solo lead. And you think, here it is. This is the chance. He birdies 9. He has a 2-shot lead going into the final 9. And you think, all you got to do is just get around here. Birdie 13 to 15, maybe 16. It's the ace pin. You can do this thing. And, you know, as I mentioned before, I'm turning 43 at the end of the month. Rose is 45, so we're not that far apart in age. And I've talked to the guy a few times. It's not a personal relationship thing. I enjoyed his company those few times. But it was more of a empathy thing. A guy that stage of his career, still playing great golf as he has really the last 3 years in the major championships. He's had opportunities to win majors. He had an opportunity last year to win the Masters. He didn't get it done in that playoff. He's lost the Masters twice in playoffs. He's been second 3 times, but those 2 playoff losses are to the 2 guys who won for their first time after needing the most number of appearances to do it. Garcia in his 19th appearance in 2017 and McIlroy in his 17th appearance in 2025. And I really wanted him to win. And there was nothing against any other player, nothing of the sort. I just wanted to see him get his day in the sun at that particular tournament. If he wins another major here this year or next year, next few years, it'll be incredible. He'll be one of the oldest major champions ever. It will be a payoff to an incredible career that's seen a lot of close calls in the major championships and 1 U.S. Open currently to show for it. At Marion, of all places, which is pretty darn good, but 1 major to show for it. And yet I feel like if it doesn't happen at the Masters, it'll be a consolation prize to do it anywhere else. Maybe the Open Championship, right, where it kind of all started at Birkdale in 98. It'd be pretty cool if that were kind of the bookend, so to speak, to his time in the professional golf spotlight, doing it as an amateur at 17 years old in 98, getting so close then, finishing with the glory of holing out, and then maybe winning a claret jug. That would be a cool bookend. I will certainly be thinking about that come July. But I want him to win a Masters. I really do. And he lost his momentum in Amen Corner. He made a bad play with his second shot and got a bad bounce on 11. Couldn't make par from there. Stubbed a chip on 12. Couldn't make par from there. 13, he made a 3-putt par after hitting a brilliant second shot to set up an eagle putt. And that's where it got away from him. It was those shots right there, right? If you don't screw up those holes, you win the golf tournament. You win the golf tournament. And it didn't work out that way for him. But I'm kind of the stage in my life where I'm realizing what my limitations are, that I'm not at the peak of my powers anymore in some things. Still have lots to offer and talent, things like that. But you realize there's certain things you're just not going to accomplish in life once you get to a certain age, or that you have a very limited window left to do it. And that on the right day, in the right place, against the right people in the right time, you can do it. And I was kind of hoping that all lined up for Justin Rose yesterday, and it didn't. And that's got to be a tough one to take. He talked afterwards about the ovation that he got on 18, and that he was so happy to have the support of the patrons all week. But he said it felt like a sympathy on the 18th hole, the 72nd hole, that he didn't get it done. That it was an ovation of kind of consolation, not of applause for an accomplishment. They probably wanted him to win too. I mean, I know Rory McIlroy is a super popular player at Augusta National, both with the patrons and the members. And he's a very popular winner, and rightfully so, very popular player. But I think if Justin Rose ever finds a way to win, and next year that would make him 46 trying to win this thing. I don't know the difference in days between his and Jack Nicklaus's birthday, so I don't know if he would be the oldest ever Masters champion, but that would be a pretty sweet way to finally do it in your 22nd appearance, to be the oldest or darn close to the oldest Masters champion for your first and probably only time. That's a storyline I'll be rooting for in 2027. Who knows if it's true? Who knows if it'll happen? But if it's written in the stars like that, that'd be pretty good. That's going to do it for us on this Masters recap edition of Two Off the First. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Get a hold of me on social media at Ryan Ballengee or Ryan Ballengee Golf. Find Golf News Net on any service at Golf News Net. Thanks so much for your time. We'll be back with another show. We'll do one on Thursday. We usually do Tuesday, Thursday, but we'll do Thursday back this week, as we have the RBC Heritage. We've got the JM Eagle LA Championship on the LPGA, their final event for their first major, the Chevron Championship, next week in Houston. Live is in Mexico City. And that's pretty much it on the docket. No DP World Tour this week. So limited week, but a great tournament at Hilton Head for a follow-up to the Masters. A good little dessert after an incredible week. I'm Ryan Ballengee. Thanks so much for watching or listening, and we'll talk to you next time on Two Off the First.